Okay, it says we're live. Hey, everybody, happy Wednesday morning. It's August 6th, 2025. Yes, there will never be another August 6th, 2025. This is the only one we get. Got to make the most of it. So, I will be going over some topics this morning. The last time we got together, I talked about, I spent a lot of time talking about the Fed, the moves Trump is making with the Federal Reserve Bank, where the Federal Reserve Bank came from, what they've been using it for the last 100 years. And this time, a little bit of, we're going to go into some different things. I didn't really talk about SpyGate that much last time, and this time we're going to be fixing that. There have been a lot of developments in the last week and a half or so that I need to address, especially a lot of people who've been babbling ignorant stuff about statutes of limitations and things like that. John gave us one shot at this, and he blew it. Okay, he blew it. You notice I have a background today. I'm gonna turn that off in a minute. It's not really working. I notice every time I lean forward, you get to see some of the Michael Flynn portrait behind. Okay, but yeah, maybe talking about something I've been expected to happen for several years now. All the trend lines are moving in that direction. So yeah, let me go ahead and just turn that background off. It's very distracting. Probably wasn't a good idea anyway. We'll just go back to no background. There we go. Okay. So, Dangerous with Coffee with Brian Cates. It's the Wednesday, August 6th, 2025 edition. And, the reason I decided on the name Dangerous with Coffee for this new show that I'm launching is that I had a thought a while back. The more coffee I drink, the more awake I get. And the more awake I get, the more I began questioning things I've been told throughout my entire lifetime. Things I've been told about all the wars and military conflicts that we just seem to be endlessly engaged in. Things I've been told about how very necessary a $600-700 billion defense industry is every year, not just in our country, but around the world. The defense industries of France, Germany, Spain, Italy, we're also funding a large part of it, by the way. The worldview, I guess you could say. Every now and then, some new event happens, or some new declassification happens. And I have to turn around and go back and look with new eyes on something that I thought I already understood. And we all know what the big events are. The main events, the Kennedy assassination, the Vietnam War, 9/11, October 7, things. How the official story just does not add up. But they had such tight control of everything back then. They were able to successfully sell an illusion, a false narrative about what actually happened. And there were always people that questioned it. There were always a certain number of people who were awake. Most of the public would sleep. And we live in an amazing time in which a great awakening is happening, and more people wake up every day. More people have the blinders, like Saul on the road to Damascus. The scales fall from their eyes, and they go, "Oh my God!" All of a sudden, they can see what they couldn't see before. And so we'll be going into some things about that on SpyGate. And I'm also going to be discussing the recent declassifications that have happened. Why, when you begin to pull on the SpyGate thread, it's like the leg bone's connected to the hip bone's connected to the backbone's connected to the shoulder bone's connected to the arm bone. Okay, just like the Russiagate scandal. See, I use two different terms. Let me explain that real quick. I say Russiagate. What do I mean? I mean the Clinton campaign setting up a plan to create fake Russia hoaxes to smear Donald Trump with during the 2016 election. When I talk about that, I'm talking about Russiagate. Okay, how is SpyGate different from Russiagate? Well, SpyGate was when the official people at the FBI and the CIA, the Department of Justice, and the White House took the Russiagate hoaxes and used them to launch technically legal spying and criminal investigations of the Trump campaign in the 2016 election, and then once Trump won that election, to continue their spying and criminal case building against the president-elect and his team. And then once Trump was inaugurated and became the sitting president, they're continuing their spying on a sitting president and his associates in building what they hoped would be criminal cases that would remove him from office. That's what I mean when I say SpyGate. So Russiagate is one thing. SpyGate is something else. And once you start investigating SpyGate, you led backwards to Russiagate. And once you begin investigating Russiagate, you led backwards to Hillary Servergate. Servergate, her hidden server. And all those Blackberries they destroyed by literally pounding them with hammers. One follows the other, like night follows day. SpyGate, Russiagate, Servergate. And what does Servergate lead you to? Why does Hillary Clinton have an off-the-books, hidden, unencrypted, unofficial email server in her basement? Why does she have? Well, most people say, well, she's doing all kinds of pay-for-play for her Clinton Foundation. So can't do that on the official government communication system. Very true. Can't do pay-for-play on an official governmental network where everything's encrypted and everything's subject to what's called the FRA. That's the Federal Records Act for those of you in Rio Linda. So no, you can't do your illegal pay-for-play stuff on the official channels. You've got to have an unofficial electronic comms network for that kind of thing. So what does Servergate and this hidden comms network where all these people in the Obama White House, in the Obama State Department, in the Obama FBI, in the Obama DOJ, in the Obama CIA, and spy every other freaking federal agency? Okay. Why? What were they talking about on their cool, secret, hidden electronic communications network from 2009 to 2017? What kind of conversations were they having on those secret emails? Well, they're all using their funky, fake email addresses and they're using fake pseudonymous names to hide their real identities. Yeah. Well, how about the DNC hack, and how they were setting up the fake as AF CrowdStrike report. How about that? She blamed the Russians for what was essentially an inside job. I, an American patriot, ended up being murdered. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let me just bounce this idea off. If there's a documentary chain that was discovered that ties you to setting up the murder of the leaker of the DNC emails to WikiLeaks, what's the statute of limitation on that kind of thing? Maybe you look into that. But the foot bone's connected to the shin bones connected to the thigh bone's connected to the hip bone's connected to the backbone's connected. Okay, you get the idea, right? You understand? Right, okay, yeah. Once you penetrate that comms network where Obama and his team were discussing all this off the books illegal shit they were doing from 2009 all the way to 2017, you're gonna end up in many, many different places you never thought you would go. But you will. You pull on that SpyGate thread. You led to the Russiagate thread. Ooh, let's see where the Russiagate thread goes. Well, the Russiagate thread goes straight to the ServerGate thread. Where does the ServerGate thread go? Well, ServerGate thread leads right to the CrowdStrike fake report thread. Where does that lead? Well, that leads to the DNC email theft by a DNC employee. You gave it to WikiLeaks. You pull on that, where does that lead? Okay. Well, it leads to things like, and I've been talking about this for some time. I know some of you people out there watching think I'm a raving lunatic when I talk about this, but it leads to stuff like the creation of ISIS. That's what it leads to. What actually happened at Benghazi, among others, that people were involved in from 2009 to 2017. Let me take another sip and wake up a bit more. I'm also going to be discussing that I just saw a TV hit this morning. Yeah, I still watch Fox News, but remember, I fully recognize what Fox News is, okay? I do not let anybody else frame the news for me and emotionally manipulate me any longer. I'm able to spot what they're doing, even as they're trying to do it. And they put one of these neocon congressmen on, talking about how, well, I'm just amazed at what's coming out. And I can't believe this stuff. Wow, this is powerful stuff, And we find out what they were doing, with that Russia ICA and how Obama demanded they go back and rewrite that thing so he could use it. I mean, wow, this is amazing stuff, and I'm sure Donald Trump has got to be amazed. He's finding out at the same time we are what they were doing. When these declassifications happen, Trump is finding out right alongside the rest of us what they were doing. Yeah, sure, bro. The guy who's been saying for years we have it all. He's finding out now what they were doing. That's a prominent narrative out there, by the way. A lot of neocon social media influencers push that. I bet Trump is shocked to discover what they were doing. He's finding out at the same time the rest of these people, who weren't even in the SpyGate space, all these social media influencers who weren't even in the SpyGate space till 10 freaking minutes ago. Wow, Donald Trump's finding out at the same time we are about all of this stuff. All of us long-time SpyGate people just sit back and laugh at this. I mean, come on, how can you take this seriously? Donald Trump just now finding out why they raided his home to grab the ICA back and reclassify it. Yeah, I'd go with that. Just now finding out what they've got. When it's declassified, he finds out along with the rest of us. That's and they get away with this shit because nobody knows how anything actually works. We'll be talking about that. And the last thing we're going to be talking about is how I love returning to this subject because Donald Trump is talking about it now. He's putting a spotlight on it. It already had a national spotlight on it, and Trump took it and made it brighter and enlarged it by talking about the American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ads, the commercial, and the vast cultural shift that's underway. It appears to be underway, and we'll be talking about that. That'll be our fourth subject this morning. So let's start. Let's start with the first one. Recent SpyGate developments. Okay, yeah, we found out just in the last 2 weeks there have been a series of declassifications that have gone on. Oh, I'm catching up on the comments. I had that turned off. Okay, yeah. Some people are making good comments. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, CrowdStrike, good comment from David there. Yes, I believe that's true. I believe that's true. So I've been creating the framework for how my conversation is going to go. Yeah, they try to maintain strict information control. Yeah. And even there's some things they're not ready to have come out yet. They're not ready to have a lot of this come out. Well, thank you for those kind words, Blue Megan. But there's some declassifications that are coming out, and people are surprised. Oh wow, and so this narrative's developing that Trump is somehow finding out at the same time we are about a lot of this stuff. The guy who's been saying since 2018, 2019. He goes on camera and says, "We have it all. I caught him. I caught the swamp." Okay. And this narrative's forming. Trump had, best way to say this. You even see a lot of top people like Steve Bannon and Jack Posobiec and Laura Loomer and many others out there talking about clueless Donald Trump, dumbass Donald Trump, retarded Donald Trump, who has no idea what's going on around him. His own staff. His own staff hides things from him. They successfully stage manage the guy. And he doesn't really understand what's going on around him. We really need to start listening to them. We need to start listening to Laura Loomer and Jack Posobiec and Steve Bannon, and we really need to start listening to them so he can save himself. So they're getting tired of saving this guy from himself. So I'm watching this narrative pick up speed again as these declassifications are happening. You're going to see people who came into our movement from neocon media. They're going to be stoking this narrative. And Trump is just now finding this out along with the rest of us. Because, of course, his staff wasn't letting him see any of this until now. I'm watching this. Yeah, okay. I have I've talked about this several times in the past about why I think Steve Bannon ended up being chucked ass first out of the White House about 7 months into that first term. Let me tell you about that. Okay, I think the reason that Steve Bannon ended up being, supposedly he was Trump's seven guy, and man, I tell you, Steve Bannon really enjoyed the heck out of being painted in the fake news media as being Trump's evil genius, his evil seven guy, whispering in his ear, you know, and I put him in the White House. So Steve Bannon put Donald Trump in the White House. And Thomas Wickton was showing everybody back in the day, 2017, 2018, who it really was that put Donald J. Trump in the White House. And it wasn't Steve Bannon. What to help there were a lot of people to see who Trump's real campaign manager was for that 2016 campaign. And it wasn't Corey Lewandowski. It wasn't that guy whose name I can never remember, the official person. Or it wasn't, brain fart here. That moment you realize you spilled coffee all over your shirt. I can't see it. Okay. I got a line where it's like, you're live on the air. Okay, so too late. I spilled coffee. I'm with it. Okay. Kellyanne Conway. Yes. All right. Kellyanne Conway. None of those people, Paul Manafort, Kellyanne Conway, and whoever, none of those people were really setting the strategy for the Trump campaign in 2016. I tell people who it was. Victor, and after Victor showed me this, I was telling people also. I was telling people back in 2017, 2018 who Trump's real campaign strategist was. But back at that time, the fake news, I'm not talking about not just the fake news, the left side fake news, and the neocon news media had all been seeded with stories about this person and his wife. How they were stabbing Trump, stabbing the old man repeatedly in the back. And he was clueless and he had no idea they were doing that. Poor clueless Trump, betrayed by his own daughter and her husband. Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad he can't see what they're doing to him. It's so sad. Yeah, people actually believe this bullshit. Yes. That Jared Kushner and his wife, Ivanka, were still staunch Democrats, sabotaging and undermining the old man right at his elbow. And he couldn't see it. You remember people were being told this? What was I telling you over in the corner? Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Bullshit. That's Bannon. I knew, Sam. I strongly suspected who it was that was using all of his media, his extensive media contacts, because this person was insanely jealous of who Trump's real campaign strategist was that won him the White House. Even though, and they kept this on the down low, they did not publicly admit it. They still haven't admitted who the real campaign strategist was, that it was Jared Kushner. It had to burn Bannon's ass that Trump knows who really put him in the White House, even though Bannon's getting all of this attaboy back patting crap from the media. You did it. You did it, Bannon. Well done. So one of the first things Bannon said about doing once they were in the White House, he started trying to turn Trump against Jared and Ivanka. He started planting stories all over the media. Now they're not really Republicans. No, they're not really on board with the old man. They're repeatedly trying to undermine the old man. And Trump put up with a couple of months of that shit. And he didn't want to call attention to the fact that Jared was a dual campaign strategy. He didn't want to do that. But he was Bannon over there, desperate to be Trump's big guy. And he knows, even in 2017, who Trump is really listening to, who Trump is really giving respect, and who was behind the scenes, who was Trump's hatchet man, who was moving around and getting things done. And a lot of this didn't come out until later with the Abraham Accords and other things that were accomplished. That Jared was the go-to guy. He was the hidden diplomat. Trump knew better than to try to use the State Department. Official State Department diplodonks, you know, compromise State Department people to try to get his foreign policy initiative done. No, he relied on special envoys, special diplomatic envoys, like his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Rick Grenell. He relied on those people. He did not use the State Department. But it burns Bannon's ass that even though he's getting all of this public acclaim, being Trump's seven guy, and now he's in the White House with Trump, and he's just whispering in Trump's ear every day. There were stories like this in the media at the time. I'm sure some of you remember them. I wonder what Trump and Bannon are cooking up these days. I wonder what they're up to, what they're talking about. But Bannon knew everybody who was in that inner circle knew the truth. He and Trump aren't cooking up shit. And it burned his ass. So, he began playing media games. Yeah. Absolutely. He started seeding the media with these stories about Jared and Ivanka secretly plotting against the old man. And Trump told him in no uncertain terms to cut that shit out. Bannon wouldn't do it. So, about 7 months in, Bannon got the heave-ho. Go back and look at some of the shit Bannon was saying when that happened. He told you what he really thought of Trump back then. Once he was exiled from Xanadu, exiled from Camelot. He went from, you're the guy who put Trump in the White House, to getting his ass tossed out of the White House. Go back and look at the interviews he gave in 2017. About late 2017 into 2018. Listen to what he said about Trump. He's telling you what he really thought, what he really thinks. But nobody remembers any of this because after 2 years in the wilderness, about a year and a half in the wilderness, 2017 to about the late 2018, Bannon realizes he's not getting anywhere. He's done. He needed to get back into MAGA. And he did. He launched the war room. He came back and, I'm more MAGA than MAGA. A MAGA king. But you go back and read this shit this guy was saying about Trump back in late 2017, 2018. You'll see what he was telling you now that he had been exiled. He was in exile. He told you what he really thought about the man. He did. In the last 5, 6 years or so with Bannon's ruling, he's back and he's bigger and better than ever. And he's more MAGA than any of you other losers out there. Sure he is. Sure he is. Oh, he still thinks he's smarter than Trump. He still thinks that he's some kind of genius, even though, I've been telling people this. About that case, the We Build the Wall case, where he and these other guys claimed that every cent of that money was going to be spent on the wall. And they raised something like $15 million. They're all paid themselves 6-figure salaries out of that money. And they got caught. Several people went to jail. Bannon managed to work himself a plea deal. He pleaded guilty, by the way. Did you know that? In New York State. He should have gone to prison for that. Because that was fraud. That was, fraud. They said, we're not going to take one penny, damn it. Every single penny will go to build the wall. And then they paid themselves 6-figure salaries. I think 2 or 3 people went to prison for that. But Bannon worked himself a deal. To just plead guilty and get a fine or whatever. And this is the same asshole that sits there on War Room all day long, talked about it, 2-tier justice system. Anyway, let's get back to where I was going with all of this. The recent SpyGate developments, and you have all these people out there saying Trump has no idea what's coming, is not really in charge of anything. He's being stage managed by his staff, who are hiding all kinds of shit from him. And so he doesn't know about any of these declassifications that have been happening. He's finding out at the same time the rest of us do. What was in that ICA? Oh my God, terrible! It's horrible. That Obama told them to go back and rewrite that thing so he could fasten it into a booby trap and leave it behind himself, expel all those diplomats, and set a trap for me and General Flynn and Jeff Sessions and everybody else on my incoming transition team by creating a crisis, an international crisis with Russia that he knew was based on a hoax that came straight from the Hillary Clinton campaign. Here we are. It's August 6th now, 2025. You will still see people in the neocon news media who infiltrated us. They've infiltrated MAGA. Still selling this shit. Wow, Trump's got to be amazed to be finding this out this very week. Because of what was just declassified. Got to be amazed at what he's discovering just now, along with the rest of us. And I'm like, I wouldn't be too sure of that. That Trump is just now finding out what they were doing. You need to look no further than the Mar-a-Lago raid, because what's been coming out, according to statements made by John Solomon, has proven to me over the years the guy has a track record. He's got very good sources, especially inside Congress and the DOJ. And he's got Devin Nunes, he's got Cass Patel, he's got Trump himself, all saying certain things about that Mar-a-Lago raid and what they were desperate to get back from him. But you're going to have social media dumbasses telling you Trump had no idea what was in that ICA until Tulsi Gabbard declassified last week. Guy didn't have a clue. He had no idea why they raided his Mar-a-Lago home. You know, good thing he had the video cameras on. It's all on video. That's a big positive. But as far as what was actually in those documents, no, Trump didn't know why it was so important to them to get those documents back. Because remember, he's just a swaggering alpha male dumbass, and he doesn't listen to people like Steve Bannon and Laura Loomer or all these other more MAGA than MAGA, influencers out there. He doesn't listen to them. Oh, it's so sad he doesn't listen to them. It's so sad he doesn't listen to them. I've been telling people for going on, ever since it became obvious that Durham was obvious by about, right if they stole the election, of course. And people were saying, well, damn, Trump is leaving and Biden and Merrick Garland are coming in. Durham's not going to be allowed to do anything. And so all that foundation they laid there, exposing the joint venture between the Obama White House and the Clinton campaign and the DOJ and the FBI and the CIA and the State Department and all these other moving parts. Oh, so sad. Nothing's ever going to come of it. Durham was our one shot at this. And he blew it! Supposedly he blew it. And so right about 2021 or so, I began to be hit with relentless waves of criticism, but still covering Durham. I mean, he released his final report, I think it was early 2023. Why are you still wasting your time on that? Nothing's ever going to happen with it. It's over. So, Brian, accept the truth. It's over. Nothing is ever going to happen with Durham. You're in denial, bro. Come back to reality with the left. Started to get hit with it. So, what did I start telling people? And I actually started telling people this in 2020, right after they stole the election. But I really had to pick it up in 2023. And every time I mentioned this, people lost their minds, okay? And I have to admit that I gave in to the trolls in one respect. Because every time I mentioned this, I got hit with relentless waves of trolling. I said, I'm going to zip my lip about this. I'm just going to go move on to other things. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait now until the proper time. I'm going to stop talking about how the statute of limitations doesn't matter. Stop talking to me about statute of limitations. Every time you do a new freaking act as part of the grand conspiracy, you reset the clock. I was telling people this from 2020 all the way to 2023. And then I said, pardon my French, fuck it. I'll move on to other things until the time is right. And I did. I've been telling my brother, early 2023, so it's like 2.5 years now. I'm going into hibernation on Durham. I'm tired of telling people the statute of limitations isn't going to do what they're constantly being told it is. Well, all this shit happened back in 2015, 2016, it's 2024 now, so 5 years statute of limitations for false statements to a federal agent or official. And so, oh well, they got away with it off. The 5 year statute of limitations is run out, and now none of them can be indicted or charged for their false statements. And what would I tell these people when they would tell me that? Oh, that's interesting. They can't be charged for their false statements in their interviews, under oath or not. Can't be charged by the 5 years expired. I would very patiently explain to these people. If you're part of a criminal conspiracy, and a criminal conspiracy started 20 years ago, well, let me set this. It started 17 years ago in 2008. You enter into a criminal conspiracy with other people. And every couple of weeks and months, you take action to continue your criminal conspiracy. Every time you do that, according to the law now, I'm not making this up, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. Every time you engage in a new act to continue and further the aims and goals and ambitions of that criminal conspiracy that you engaged in with these other people, you reset the clock. You reset the clock. So it doesn't matter how far back the criminal conspiracy started. If you say, you know, do you want to start with when Eric Schmidt set up that secret email server network for them so they can maintain control of their puppet states in North Korea and Iran, so they could communicate with their proxies over there? And they could do things like create ISIS and, rig elections and prepare pandemics and plan assassinations, some of which are successful. And you want to go back to 2008, 2009, you can do that. False statements to a federal official during an interview is the least of the things that these freaking people have to worry about. A lot of people can't seem to understand that. Well, they lied under oath. Yeah, so? I took the CIA's carefully created and funded an armed paramilitary force, and I engaged in a conspiracy to help sheep dip that paramilitary Operation Gladio force and disguise it as a new terrorist group of radicalized Islamists. And then I helped engage in a conspiracy to unleash that disguised CIA paramilitary force on the Middle East to destabilize certain regions, to go out and actually seize large chunks of Iraq and Syria. I engaged in a grand conspiracy to do that kind of thing. And I left a trail of emails behind me on this unofficial network while we were engaging in the vast coordination that's required to pull off something like that. And to get about 50,000 people killed, all right? 50,000 people killed by ISIS in just a short period of time. What's the freaking statute of limitations on that? Anybody know? But they were called in and they were asked if they had this. Hillary was called in and asked if she had anything to do with this server, and she lied under oath. And then she had her staff go and destroy 33,000 emails and destroy the server. And the server that's crouched, they destroyed the server, and then she had her staff and use actual hammers on the Blackberries to destroy them. Oh, too bad, so sad. The 5-year statute of limitations ran out on that. One of the biggest burdens people like me have to carry See, what the hell that is, I spelled it in there. Okay. One of the biggest burdens somebody like me has to carry in this world is, Thomas Richter talked about this very often. There are so many people out there that are lifted up to high positions where hundreds of thousands, even millions of people pay attention to what they say. And they haven't got the first freaking clue how anything actually works. They don't understand how anything actually works. So if some DNC staffer used a thumb drive to steal a bunch of emails off the DNC server, the headquarters gave that to Julian Assange WikiLeaks. That person was subsequently murdered. As part of the investigation, some of the people that were involved were questioned years and years ago, and they lied to the investigators. Oh, it's so sad they can never be charged with making a false statement. Oh, it's so sad that they got away with murdering Death Ridge. Oh, it's so sad. It's been more than 5 years. Sorry, people. They got away with it. They haven't gotten away with shit. But when you roll this out, and you start showing people how bad it really was, and how many people, not just Death Ridge, how many people died because of all the shit these people were doing on their secret, off the books, email, electronic communications network, all that shit they were doing. How many people did the COVID pandemic kill? Anybody got an estimate of that? What's the statute of limitations on plotting to kill a couple 100 million people? What's the statute of limitations on covering up a Benghazi? So, because you don't want to admit you're running guns and you're getting ready to unleash a paramilitary. You're already in the process of unleashing a CIA sheep dip paramilitary, first world paramilitary force, and you're disguising it as a bunch of radical Islamic terrorist assholes so you can destabilize the region and give them a magical mystery air shield. And wow, it's amazing. Nobody can stop them. You know, Obama gets up there and does a helpless shrugging act for 5, 6 freaking years, trying to control my language. And then Donald Trump comes in there and he wipes them out in like 4 months. Wow, how did that happen? The declassifications are pointing to where things are headed. They're pointing to where things are going to go. People who've been in the SpyGate, RussiaGate, ServerGate, CrowdStrike-gate, Steph Rich, people who've been in this space for almost a decade at this point, 8 years. It's not hard to see where it's headed. Don't wait for most social media influencers to tell you where it's headed. They don't have a clue. Because they don't actually know how anything works. And they're all listening to shitheads like Steve Bannon. who still finds several ways to, pardon my French, fuck with Donald Trump while pretending to be more MAGA than MAGA, selling narratives about how fucking dumb Donald Trump is, how Donald Trump needs to constantly be saved from himself. I'm gonna be honest here, that pisses me off. It's not hard to see where things are headed with these declassifications. SpyGate leads directly to Russiagate, leads directly to Servergate, leads directly to CrowdStrike's fake report about the Russian hacking. Which when all this is exhumed and exposed. Right now, we're just at Russiagate. SpyGate, Russiagate. Okay. What further declassifications are coming? Well, you can spot the trend. The foot bones connected to the shin bones connected to the thigh bone. Okay. SpyGate, Russiagate, Servergate. What does Servergate lead to? Well, Servergate leads to the CrowdStrike report. Okay, what's the fake as hell CrowdStrike report? What does that lead to? Then the fact the whole Russia thing was an invention. That leads right to the DNC email hacked by the Russians. When the truth comes out about that, when the declassification happens on that, people are going, oh my. You see how fake news and neocon news is already struggling to deal with this, okay? What do you think is going to happen when Trump and Tulsi and Cash and Pam and Dan, when they come out with the declassifications that are coming, that Trump already knows about? When it comes out, oh my God, and they're forced to fake news to cover this. There was no Russian hacking. There was no Russian hacking. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was an inside job. And the person ended up dead under strange circumstances. Oh my God. And keep working your way backwards. Now the thing, you have to go backwards before you can go forward. They're gonna show you how SpyGate's connected to the Russiagate bone. The Russiagate bone's connected to the Clinton server bone. The Clinton server bone's connected to the the fake CrowdStrike report bone. And why did they have to come up with a fake CrowdStrike report? Because of the DNC email theft that ended up at WikiLeaks. They exposed how they were rigging their primaries, how they were fixing and rigging their elections. Okay, it's all connected. Now, like that crazy guy with the cigarette, you know, and the famous meme and the gift from that TV show. But it's all connected. I'm not making that up. Okay, so you pull on that one thread. You like night follows day. You led to keep going. Where do you think Durham ended up? What did Durham know? What did he see? Another thing I've been meaning to deal with. I'm dealing with it now. People talk about Durham, the cover-up artist, and the ICA, the first and second Russian election interference ICA, the declassification that happened from Tulsi Gabbard. What was the hot take from a lot of people on social media? Why didn't Durham reveal this? Oh, it makes me so mad. Durham should have shown everybody this. Why didn't he tell anybody about this Russian ICA? And they showed the original to Obama. And he said, screw that. I'm not using that. That doesn't let me start an international crisis with Russia that I want to start. Go back. You go back and plant your ass in your chair, in your office, and you write that damn thing, and you give me something I can use. And they did. So what's the story? It's the story you're being told. Okay, it's all connected. One leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Now see how the whole chain goes to Benghazi, right to Benghazi back in 2012. You start with the shit they were doing in 2015, 2016. Working your way backwards. You'll end up at Benghazi. You'll end up with what John McCain and all these other assholes were actually doing in their Middle Eastern trips to places like Syria and Iraq and Benghazi. What were they actually doing on those trips? It's all connected. Yeah. This is why they tried to blow Trump's head off back in Butler last year. You look at the effort they put into getting that guy out of office and stealing that election from him in 2020 because they knew what he was going to be like. All the signals, all the tremors he sent through their system, even with the limited control he had in that first term. They knew what he would do in his second term. He didn't have to face the voters again. They knew the gloves would come off. He'd have to stop. He could stop playing nice in his second term. And now he's back. Okay. Well, they saw him coming back last year, and I don't care what the fake news post told you about Biden or Harris. They knew they weren't going to be able to stop him if that election was held. You get a 20 million boost from fake mail-in ballots. You get to do that shit one time. Something else I was explaining to people for months in advance. Yeah, Kate's has never been right about anything. You know, I was telling people months in advance. You get to pull that shit once. 20 million. Yeah, where'd the 20 million votes go? I knew they weren't going to be able to do that again. I was explaining this to people. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, Kate. They just use their electronic wizardry to fudge the numbers. They can have whatever numbers they want. I said, no, they can't do this. Not twice. They cannot inject 20 million fake ballots. They can't. And they didn't. And she lost horribly. As I said she would. No. They knew if they failed to stop him, what he would do, what he was set up for in his second term. Especially when they saw who his cabinet his cabinet nominees were. Oh my God, no, not that Cash fellow. Not the guy who wrote Government Gangsters, not Pam Bondi, who defended Trump at both his impeachment trials. Certainly not Pete Hegseth. Oh my God, Pete Hegseth, are you nuts? One by one, Linda McMahon, Department of Education. John Ratcliffe at the CIA. Oh, pay attention to who's been telling you Ratcliffe is dirty. I need to get rid of him. Okay. And it was obvious when he started naming his cabinet officials and they started getting nominated and confirmed. It was obvious where he was going. Excuse me. I said many times over the years, nobody really grasped the scope of this. what Durham found. Now, there's a difference between what Durham found and he could show you. I can't, I couldn't believe when this started coming out 2 weeks ago. I had to explain this. When I saw all of them, how pissed off some of these social media influencers are, and even some journalists are truly pissed at John Durham. Why didn't he show us that ICA back in 2023? Why did he classify it and put that in an annex to his final report? What a cover-up artist! Why did he do that? Why he do that? Why he do that? Benghazi. Okay, yeah, fine. I'm back. I saw that. Okay. Durham was not allowed to declassify anything. He could ask, hey, could you guys declassify that for me so I can put that in my final report? No! Oh, okay. I mean, somebody who actually, see, I followed the John Durham special counsel. Okay, and the best way to say this so you fully grasp what I'm telling you. I knew Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein had somebody investigating the leaks that were involved in the SpyGate and the Russellgate scandal from the earliest days. They just wouldn't admit that anybody was doing that. Somebody was investigating. Who did the Flynn Kislyak phone call leak? Somebody was investigating. Who did all these leaks to drive the Russellgate narrative in the press? I knew Sessions had appointed someone to investigate that before he accused himself. But I didn't know who it was. Yeah, somebody who actually read all of the indictments, read all the struck page text messages, or I won't say I read all of them, I read the vast majority of them. If somebody who actually, once they finally got around to surfacing Durham and his SpyGate investigation, somebody who read every court filing, read every indictment, and actually read the final report, I have a much better grasp of how this went down and where this is headed than people who just stick their head into the SpyGate every couple of years to give a monetized hot take on it. So when Tulsi Gabbard did this declassification of the annex to the Durham report, I watched all the usual suspects out there. That goddamn Durham, that son of a bitch. Why did he classify this? Well, look, he tried to hide this from us. That son of a bitch. How dare he classify that and hide it from us? Screw you, John Durham, you cover up artist. I watch all of this. Nobody knows how anything actually works. I'm shocked at the number of journalists I saw out there talking about Durham, the cover up artist, declassify stuff and hide it in an annex so the public can't see it. I'm like, dude, come on, you got to know better. Now, let me explain for those of you in the back of the room from Rio Linda. Okay, let me explain this to those of you from Rio Linda. A special counsel who is usually a U.S. attorney and appointed by an attorney general and given a special counsel's office, we hire the staff, all right? A special counsel has three limiting factors to his investigation. One, he can only investigate within the scope set down for him by the Attorney General, or in this case, Deputy Attorney General, which was Rod Rosenstein. Well, that was when Durham. Let me rephrase that. When Durham was officially brought out and declared to be a special counsel, it was after William Barr that publicly set down the scope of his now public SpyGate investigation. We don't know what scope Durham was given when he actually began investigating the SpyGate leaks and other SpyGate related issues by April of 2017. Never saw any scope document from that. We've never even seen any official paperwork or document. I hereby appoint U.S. Attorney for Connecticut, John Durham, to bring Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and James Comey and Andrew McCabe and plant their asses in a chair and interview them about all these SpyGate leaks. We've never seen any such documents. But we know it must exist because SpyGate researchers like myself have actually read the Strzok Page text messages where they're talking about how nervous they are that they have to go sit down for an interview with John Durham. And they're trading these text messages back and forth in April 2017. Swear to God, I'm not making that up. No, this actually happened. 2.5 years before anybody ever heard the name John Durham, he was already on the job, bringing in the Crossfire Hurricane team and the Crossfire Eraser team, planting their asses in a chair and getting them on the record. And you've never seen any transcripts from any of these interviews. You've never seen any indictments that might have been returned by a grand jury based on what was said in those interviews. Oh well. But we know the interviews happened because Strzok and Page are talking about them. I'm going to continue. One of the text messages Peter Strzok said, he says, I'm going to continue putting off my interview with John D. April 2017. But the first, I said all that, say this, public or not, for 2.5 years, John Durham was not public, and we've never seen any scope document. But we have seen the scope document that was put out by William Barr when they brought Durham out from behind the curtain 2.5 years into his investigation and officially appointed him a public special counsel. William Barr wrote an official scope document for Durham to stay inside of and do not stray from outside of the scope. That's the first limitation Durham had. The second limitation Durham had is, and you'd be surprised the number of people. I mean, a lot of people play up the powers. The awesome powers of the special counsel's office. There are two very severe limitations on special counsel. Let me explain to you what they are. One, can't declassify anything. He can't classify anything. He can't declassify anything. Special counsel does not have that power. What special counsel can do, they can go to a court, they can go to the judge, maybe presiding over a grand jury, and say, they can ask, can you please seal this evidence for now? Can you seal it? Or they can ask for something that was sealed earlier to be unsealed. But that's not the same thing as using the national security system to classify or declassify something. That's very different. And I watched a lot of journalists that I thought understood this for the past 2 weeks. That goddamn John Durham, what a cover-up artist, huh? Classifying that annex and tacking it onto the individual report like he's mocking us. Yeah, okay. All right, you want to see what's here, but I classified it. I'll tack it on there where you can see it's there, but you can't read it. Yeah, that's what they tell you. John Durham did that. But John Durham can't classify anything. He can't declassify anything. He can ask, would you declassify this for me? Okay, he can ask. They say, no, go away. Okay. What's he supposed to do? Another thing that people don't seem to understand. This had to be done right. This had to be done legally by the book so it will stick. We certainly can't have people laying out the joint venture or the ground conspiracy, laying out the nuts and bolts of how all of this Russiagate, SpyGate stuff, how it was set into motion and who did what. We can't have the people who were involved in doing this legally and by the book turn around and start leaking classified shit. Breaking the law themselves. We can't have that. If they wouldn't declassify it, what the, pardon my French, what the fuck was Durham supposed to do? Leak it himself? Leak it anyway? Break the law? Screw your damn head on right. That's what a lot of these commenters need to do. You have a special counsel with no declassification authority. The better question to ask is, why was he allowed to tack that classified annex onto his report, even though nobody can read it? Why don't you ask that question? Maybe he knew someday it would end up being declassified, and everybody would see it. Just a fact. Okay, that's the first strict limitation on special counsel. He cannot classify or declassify something. The second massive limitation, we've done three. The scope, he can't go outside the scope set down for him. He can't declassify anything. And the third one, he can't interview anybody who's left government service except voluntarily. A lot of people don't understand that. Bill Priestap was in the news recently. There were some notes that he wrote, how Durham wanted to bring Bill Priestap in to discuss some things. Bill Priestap declined the invitation to be interviewed by the special counsel's office. Yeah, one of the things you learn when you dig into the final report is how many times Durham asked someone to voluntarily come in for an interview. Somebody who used to work for the federal government and now did not. He asked them to come in for a voluntary interview, and they said, a lot of people that left government service did not voluntarily go sit for an interview with John Durham. Now, a lot of people don't understand this. Okay, so the three big limitations on a special counsel: have to stay within the scope. He can be shown declassified stuff, and it can blow his mind. But unless he can get the people who classified it to declassify it, he can't say shit about it, and he for certain is not going to leak it. No matter how much that upsets you, okay? And the third thing is, he can only interview people who aren't currently in a federal government job. He has to ask them nicely. You have to ask me nicely. I want you to stand there in that faggoty white uniform and ask me nicely. Yeah. Love that movie, by the way. He is limited to nicely asking them to come in. If they say, well, no, don't think I will. What's he supposed to do? Go abduct them? So you have a better understanding of how this is unfolding and where this is headed if you actually know how things work. Like I was saying earlier, one of the biggest burdens for somebody like me, Thomas Wichter, and many of the SpyGate people from the beginning, we've been around here. We've been in this space for going on 8 years now. One of the biggest burdens was watching how many people that you think would know better say some of the most ignorant shit imaginable about him and his investigation. Durham saw things, Durham knew things. He could only tangentially hint at them as he was laying out the vast nuts and bolts of that grand joint venture that launched Russiagate and how it turned into SpyGate. While he was definitively establishing for all time there was no Russian collusion. This was a criminal and counterintelligence investigation launched against the Trump campaign based on hoaxes that had no real predicate. The people who launched it knew it had no real predicate. They knew it was all based on hoaxes, and they did what they did anyway. And the thing that very few people talk about. If you're the U.S. President, Barack Obama, and you're running a White House with the National Security Council, the Vice President, with the Attorney General, and you have all the cabinet people, Comey, McCabe, Lillard, and Lynch, these are Joe Biden. You know these are hoaxes that came from the Clinton campaign. You were tipped off they were coming. And you engaged in a criminal conspiracy to take these hoaxes and use them, make use of them to try to sabotage that other presidential campaign. If that guy that you didn't want to win. if you see how many moving parts there is to that. There's the White House, there's the State Department, there's the Department of Justice, there's the FBI, there's the CIA, there's the General Services Administration, there's the National Archives. I mean, there are all kinds of moving parts to this damn thing. That's just in the federal government. Then you have Perkins Cooley over there, where Mark Elias is quarterbacking the creation of the hoaxes. You have Orbis Business Intelligence, and you have Fusion GPS, and you have New Star with Rodney Joff and his cyber security experts, and there even in the private sector you have things going on. It's big, a big thing. They managed to keep a lot of this under wraps by classifying it. And there's all kinds of stories banded about Trump tried to declassify all this stuff while he was in his first term. On his way out the door, he ordered a bunch of declassifications. And they all just ignored him, or they didn't follow his orders. This is what we're told. They didn't follow his orders. And then he's gone. He's out of office, and he's a private citizen now. And they launched January 6th while he was on his way out the door, and then he leaves on January 2021. They launched their January 6th investigation illegally. Pelosi just didn't even follow the rules for that. They launched January 6th. They launched all these lawfare initiatives, and they go and raid his house at Mar-a-Lago, try to get some of those documents back so they can either reclassify them or destroy them. Yeah, burn bags. Good point. Yeah, thank God for the burn bags. Strange stories began coming out, the last couple of months. Strange stories. Dash room, Cash comes out and says, well, I just came across, you're not going to believe this, but turns out there's a room at the FBI headquarters and it's full of stuff from the Comey days. Apparently, it was a stash room, and we found it. There's all kinds of stuff in there, mind-blowing stuff in there. You hear about a massive truckload worth of Epstein evidence found at the FDNY. Truckload. And the guy, of course, running that doesn't work. And all the Epstein evidence is transported to FBI headquarters, where FBI Director Kash Patel assigns a group of very serious agents to do an extreme level of due diligence with this new evidence that was just found in March of 2025. They're going to do their due diligence. You have Trump going around saying that some fake shit was discovered, and very likely in this new truckload of evidence that was seized in the Southern District of New York from the FBI field office there. Moves within counter moves. And we're at a point right now where it's kind of clear where these declassifications are headed and the impact they're having on the country. Now, for all of us SpyGate people that have been in this space, the SpyGate space, I guess you could call it, we've been here a long time. We don't form instant hot takes from watching Fox News. We don't form instant hot takes from watching influencers from the Daily Wire, from many of these other places. You can see where things are headed if you know how things actually work. So I wanted to make that point. Donald Trump already knows all of this. He knows why they raided his home. He knows what they were looking for, what they were trying to get back. You remember all those weird stories about how they made the Trump staff turn all the security cameras off for a couple of minutes before they turned them all back on. If you took the time to read all the documents, you took the time to follow all of the cases, you took the time to read Durham's final report, then you know what's coming. You see, I've been telling people for years, you will see Durham come back. You will see this stuff. You will see this, study up with a pop quiz. You will going to see this material again. I've been saying that for a long time now. Now, look, I didn't understand back in 2020 how long this was going to take or how this was going to unfold. Yeah, it's easy for trolls to go back and find some things I said. They hit me with it. And you thought Durham was going to indict some of the big players, didn't you? Admit it. Yeah, I did. I could see the groundwork being laid. I said now, but then when they stole it from Trump and the Durham closed down, just released the final report, I said, good thing the statute of limitations won't run out on any of this shit for years and years and years, because Trump has a shot at coming back. The statute of limitations doesn't do what a lot of people think it does, and it doesn't work how they're telling you it works. We had one shot at this, and Durham blew it. I dealt with that shit for a long time, and people don't even want to give Durham any credit for what he found or what he did expose. No one not understanding that Trump was severely limited in that first term by what he could reveal, what he knew. He was very limited in what he could talk about, because he didn't have. He maybe had control of less than 1/3 of the federal government in that first term. That's amazing what he got done with the amount of control he did have, but he had limited control. And Durham was assigned to investigate and lay it all out, but Durham himself is limited in what he can do, because remember, what have they been showing for the last 6 months? About how bad and compromised, all the people that are getting fired and replaced out of the FBI and the DOJ. You think that, you think back, what do you think those people were doing that have been fired and moved out in the last 6 months? What were they doing from 2016 to 2021? What were they up to? It's amazing. The things are at this point. Well, all the heavy lifting is already done. They just need somebody with the balls to charge it. That's all you need. I know people think, well, it'll be years before Bondi does anything. This doesn't work. These declassifications don't mean anything. Oh, they're just now impaneling a grand jury, huh? So right this week, they're impaneling a grand jury. Start hearing this stuff, huh? This ain't gonna take long. It's another thing I've been telling people. Listen to someone who knows. This is not going to take very long. How do I know that? Right? Well, I know that when some of these declassifications started happening, people like Lindsey Graham and John Cornyn and every single swamp rat out there, neocon, GOP swamp rat, start saying, well, we need a special counsel. We need a new special counsel investigation for this. Yeah, sure they do. They want a nice, sedately paced special counsel investigation to what? What, we hashed all this shit Durham already found? Why do you need a new special counsel for that? Well, All the statute of limitations expired. No, try again. Why do you need a new special counsel to go over all this old ground that Durham already covered and exposed? Why do you need a second special counsel? Well, you need one because double jeopardy. You can't try people twice. Oh, really? How many people did Durham actually charge? What were they charged with? Doing altering a document and 2 people on false statement charges. Well, a DC jury let them off. Even though the evidence was incontrovertible that they were guilty of making those false statements, DC jury said, okay, fine. You're our heroes. You were trying to take down Trump. You can go. Didn't matter what the evidence showed, did it? No. Why do you need a special counsel? Double jeopardy? Shit, you only have 3 people that were charged under Durham. What were they charged with? The most minor offenses they could have been charged with. When they beat, and one took a plea deal, and the other 2 pleaded not guilty, went to trial, and they were acquitted. Were any of them charged with conspiracy? No. Were any of them charged with defrauding the government out of millions and millions of dollars by using political opposition hoaxes to start federal criminal or counterintelligence investigations? Was anybody ever charged with defrauding the U.S. government? No. What's the statute of limitations on a conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government? Well, it depends on when the last action to further that conspiracy. When did that last action take place? How about this week? Why does nobody else frame this stuff the way that I frame it? Why do they always insist on framing it in a way that lets them all off the hook that's depressing? That's all based on they don't even understand what they're talking about 90% of the time. So I've been saying ever since SpyGate started coming back around the bend again, there's no reason to invent the wheel here. There's no reason for a new special counsel investigation. To sedately investigate for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Sorry, Lady Lindsay. Sorry, John Cornyn. No, you're not getting a special counsel. What Pam Bondi do instead? Anybody remember? Well, all the neocon rhinos, the GOP conservatarians are calling for a new special counsel. What does Trump say needed to be done? What did Bondi do? What did Bondi do? Did she appoint a new special counsel? Well, no. Let me share this with you. I did a meme a couple days ago. Let me find that. So all yelling for Pam Bondi. We need a new special counsel, Pam. Do the special counsel thing, Pam. Do the responsible thing, Pam. Give us a special counsel. So hopefully some DC person where they can draw this out and make this last for a long time. Pam Bondi says, well, no, I don't think I'll give you a special counsel to investigate at a nice sedate pace for a couple of years. I think most of the heavy lifting has already been done on this. There's no reason to go slow. No. About a nice strike force. Yeah, that sounds better to me. How about a nice honking strike force? special counsel's office takes a long time to set up. You have to set a scope document, and the newly hired special counsel, newly appointed special counsel, has got to go get themselves the staff. They have to go find the staff, and then they have to start calling people in for voluntary interviews, and things of that nature. What's a strike force do? Well, strike force, you're talking about an animal of a completely different stripe. It's very different from a special counsel's office. Strike force is mobile, it's smaller, it's working with many times. It doesn't have to spend time investigating. It's actually taking action based on evidence already in the possession of law enforcement. And you discover a vast conspiracy, and you already have most of the evidence about that conspiracy in your possession. What's needed is organization to go out and grab the targets and reach the final stages where you're ready to make the final moves. That's what you use a strike force to do, a Department of Justice. That means you're mostly out of the investigatory phase of this. You're in the justice phase. That's what the strike force is for. So all those people out there in the DC swamp, we need a new special counsel. Pam, give us a new special counsel. They get a strike force instead. And that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing, man. So where is everything going? Oh, it's so hard to see. Oh, the fog of war, and all these different social media influencers out there who don't understand how anything works. They're all throwing all these contradictory and scenarios and narratives out there. I wonder what they're hiding from Donald Trump today. How are we gonna have to save Trump from himself this week? And, oh my God! Wow, Trump is finding this out the same time we are when his team does this declassification that he didn't know about, and he didn't know was coming. They're out there throwing all this shit at the wall, seeing what sticks so they can try to monetize it. And it actually helps if you put in the time and the effort. And believe me, I have. You have to invest in your own knowledge and the solitude and the hours of having your ass planted in a chair, reading books and reading source documents, which most social media influencers are not willing to do. That's why I don't call myself a social media influencer. I think that's a dirty three word. That's dirty. SMI. Ooh, I'm a journalist. I've discovered over the years what happens if you say ignorant shit when you don't know what you're talking about. How embarrassing that is. And I've done that a couple times. I've had to go backtrack and go correct the record and apologize and promise to do better. But social media is full of everybody trying to monetize the latest hot takes based on the latest hot button issue that everybody's excited about. And you need to strike fast while the iron's hot. And if you were going to go off for a week and read source documents and actually educate yourself on that issue, by the time you came back, well, where's the news cycle now? Oh, God, nobody's talking about this anymore. How do I monetize it now? So that's one of the biggest drawbacks of the whole social media influencing thing. They built up all these massive accounts who don't take the time to read shit before they give you the hot take on it. And now I did a long post at the time I knew SpyGate was coming back. I could already see the ignorant shit that the social media influencer class on X.com and elsewhere, that's already started. Yeah, already started. They're sticking their head back in the SpyGate room after, being none of them ever paid attention to this since Durham left. And I stopped paying attention to Durham the last 2.5 years or so he was active. So they're just now trying to get back up to speed. Of course they're not going to do their homework. Of course they're not going to research anything. They're just going to give you their hot take based on their incredible and amazing level of ignorance. And monetize that. Freaking Durham cover-up artist. I made a post this morning. I'm trying to point out to everybody, if you tell yourself Trump doesn't know what's coming, okay, if you buy into all these stupid narratives being pushed by people like Steve Bannon, or Jack Posobiec, or Laura Loomer, or any of these people, Axe Jones, sure would be nice if Trump knew what the hell was going on. That would really be nice. If he wasn't finding out all this shit at the same time the rest of us are. Because remember, there's no plan. Q was a LARP. Now, Q is the CIA. There's no plan. Trump's making it up as he goes. Sure would be nice if he listened to us. And, okay, now all these people are sticking their head back in the SpyGate room, all ready to give everybody their wonderful hot takes about it. It's just a cross I'm going to have to bear, I guess. And I promised to be savage with some people. In that post I made on Twitter about 2 weeks ago, I said, you're coming into our space now. And some of us have been here for almost 8-9 years now. When you start saying ignorant shit, it's clear, it's obvious you haven't done your homework. And you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to say something. Some people won't like that. That's okay. Journalism is not a popularity contest. It's about being accurate. Now, a lot of these social media people don't care about accuracy. They care about their Carnival Barker Act and has many eyes and clicks as they can get, saying the most inflammatory framing, the most inflammatory shit. They'll take what happened and put the most inflammatory framing on it to drive up the traffic. Well, you do that on Iran, I might comment on that and drop it. You do that on the Federal Reserve, you do that on a whole number of issues and subjects. You do that on the border, do that on they were going from recently. You do that on tariffs and the trade thing. I might say something. Would be good if you educated yourself, and then I'll drop it. But man, you come into the SpyGate space and you start doing that ignorant shit, I'm not just going to say something and drop it. This is too important. You better get it right. I don't care about your brand. I don't care about how much money you're making from monetizing your hot take on SpyGate. If you're peddling a narrative to the public that John Durham could have worked outside the scope that was set down for him, if you're peddling a narrative that Durham classified that annex and stuck it on the back of his report to mock everybody and hide it from everybody, I'm gonna call your ass out. Yes. Because if you don't know how this works, stay out. Don't even come in here. Some people would see a side of me that rarely surfaces. Because I want justice for this. That's where this is headed. I'm not going to let anybody screw this up so they can make a killing, monetize this. Take their incredibly bad hot takes based on ignorant shit that they don't know the first thing they're talking about. But they confuse millions of people. And they don't accept any responsibility for what they're doing. They accept not really no responsibility to get anything right. It's all about their brand. It's all about their money. That's all they care about. It's all about their influence, their level of influence. That's all they care about. Getting it right? Shit, they don't care about that. There's no money in that. Let's take the news cycle, frame it in the most inflammatory way possible, and make some coin. I've spent, couple years pushing back on this. Checking the chat for a second there. Okay, yeah, I am looking at the different chats. I am trying to stay engaged. Okay. But I'm gonna close with this since we're closing on an hour 45 minutes. Okay. The last subject I was going to cover was Sydney Sweeney and how wonderful it is what's happening in the American culture space right now. Trump is amplifying this now. It comes out, oh my God, Sydney Sweeney. We let her in the door because she was cute, and she's very attractive. Hey, eyes up there, okay? Yeah, she's very attractive. Okay, and Holly was like, oh my God, we let her in the door, we made her famous, and now look what she's doing with it. Oh my God, she's starring in these awful Nazi blue jean ads. This is terrible. This is horrible. And all these people are the woke tards, I call them. The people who've been completely either pretending to have the woke mind virus, that's a whole other subject. They pretend that they're affected by the woke mind virus when actually this is how they get their power and influence in our culture these days. It's not real. They don't actually believe any of this shit themselves. This is their ticket to power, okay? But then there's another group of people that are involved in this that sadly they really are brainwashed. They really have been led to believe that the woke stuff was where American culture is at right now, and it needs to stay there. And it's very alarming to these brainwashed people that totally bought in to the programming of the last decade. They totally bought in. It's alarming to watch the cultural shift that's happening at a very rapid pace. And one thing I wanted to explain is a lot of this cultural shift isn't real. It's not, this isn't the massive cultural shift some people think it is. This is the collapse of an illusion. An illusion is collapsing. Yes, the culture is shifting somewhat, but you have to understand most of the mental picture people had of American culture and where it was at was always a carefully managed mirage. It took a lot of money to keep that mirage going. And one of the most important things Donald Trump has done as we launch into this new golden age of America is that he cut off one of the Hydra heads. He cut it off because we discovered beginning in February how much of our tax money was being used, was being sent out there to promote the woke mind virus stuff, to promote that perception that American culture had shifted dramatically over the last two or three decades. But especially in the last decade, it very dramatically shifted far leftward. And now the woke mind virus was here to stay. And they successfully brainwashed all the kids. And so their victory was inevitable. And all of us wingnuts out there, we're just going to have to manage our expectations about the decline of America as a society. We're just going to have to manage the decline of American culture, just muddle along as best we could as our culture declined into wokeism. What a difference a year makes, huh? Trump hasn't even been back in office for 6 months at this point. And the reason so many people are on the left, no, I'm not talking. These are the ones that weren't in on it. I'm talking about the brainwashed people, not the elites at the top who never bought into any of this shit. They were just using it for control, cultural control. The people who were brainwashed at the bottom, okay, this is a very frightening time for them. Because they were all mentally conditioned to think all of this work shit was real and that it had become popularized and entrenched to a massive degree in our culture. And this was never going to change. They had won. They were told constantly, you can't stop the march of history. You can't stop the march of progress. And they were fed this, they were told this constantly. Well, because that's what these people believe. In the last 6 months, well, let's go back to November. The last 9 months have been incredibly alarming to these people who bought into all of this, who were still trapped in the matrix, still have that wire in the back of their heads feeding them the programming. They were told that their victory was inevitable and it could never be reversed. And they believed this. They believed it. And now, 6 months in, here we are, Sydney Sweeney. Why are they losing their minds so much over Sydney Sweeney? Well, because Sydney Sweeney and what is being accomplished by a series of blue jean commercials. It is accomplishing the demonstration that most of what these people on the left thought they were seeing, the brainwashed people, where they thought the American culture was and where it would stay, okay. They're realizing that was a mirage. It's fading. It's disappearing right before their astonished eyes. Wait a minute. You mean American culture isn't really woke? I thought we were entrenched. I thought we had American culture by the balls, man. I thought the progress was going to continue to happen. And in 6 months, what's happened? The Sydney Sweeney ads are the cumulative endpoint, the endpoint of a decade-long cultural battle. This is the touch point. Yeah, that's the way to do. It's the current cultural touch point and the cultural battle, the way the left looks at it, to destroy Donald Trump and his MAGA movement. 10 years now. For 10 years now, they've been trying to turn MAGA and Trump into an ostracized, socially outcast cult. 10 years now, they've been trying to do this. Think of all the time and money, our tax money, resources. How much of their mental efforts were put into destroying Trump and his movement? It's been going on for 10 years now. Where do things stand right now as opposed to a year ago? Well, a year ago, these people could still tell themselves, well, it's difficult to know. Yeah, he's back. He's running for president. But the culture is still firmly within our grasp. We still have control. We're entrenched. Our roots go deep. We will not be moved. Our victory is inevitable. A year ago, they could still tell themselves this. Now, these people who confidently thought they would never lose all of this cultural ground they had gained over the last decade are watching in astonishment as some hot chick actress modeling blue jeans in commercials is demonstrating the utter and complete collapse of their woke-tard illusions about where American culture currently is. And it's not where they thought it was. A couple of years ago, if American Eagle had tried this ad campaign, Sydney Sweeney wasn't a thing a couple of years ago. They used some other hot actress. If they tried this a couple of years ago, immediately there would have been massive cultural pushback. You would have seen pressure put on her, whoever it was, this actress and her agent, all her friends would be telling her, "Oh, you made a mistake. Oh, you made such a terrible, horrible mistake. Your career is now in jeopardy. You're not going to get any work in Hollywood any longer. You've got to stop. You've got to stop. You got to get out there and apologize. You need to apologize for what you've done." I mean, we all watched we've been a decade or more watching how cancel culture works. Remember Drew Brees? How fast the NFL and his agents and whoever it was that was in the background there. Drew Brees made a comment about people who don't respect the flag. They kneel during the anthem, and less than 24 hours later, what happened? They told him to get his ass back out there and apologize. And watch this. It's athletes, and every now and then an actor might say something. "Oh, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. Please don't ghost me. Please don't wreck my career. I won't do it again. I'm so sorry." Yeah, we all watched that happen. Many times that happened over the last couple of years. Well, American Eagle put out a response the other day. She still looks great in those jeans, pretty much, and we're not going to stop. As a matter of fact, I had an idea for American Eagle. Since so many people on the left are melting down about the whole Sydney Sweeney has great jeans tagline. It's like, well, it's because she's white and blonde. She has blue eyes or whatever. This is Nordic bullshit. This is Nazi stuff. Okay, I've got a free. If you're in the American Eagle advertising department, listen carefully. All right, I'm giving you this one for free. Take that attack on American Eagle Blue Jeans and flip it on its head. Go find yourself the most gorgeous black model there is out there. Bring in a black model, a gorgeous Latina model, a gorgeous Asian model, okay? Put them all in your great jeans and make the Great Jeans Club with all of these girls in it, where they lounge around in their great jeans and they're all saying funny stuff to each other. Okay? They want to try to make this about race. Great! Let's play on that. Make a great jeans club and put a lot of different girls from different races in it. Hey, America's a melting pot, right? Let's play that up. Why not? Who would you be hurting by doing that? Well, nobody. But you drive the left out of their minds because they're going around right now trying to convince everybody, oh, this is racist. This is about white supremacy. It's about a hot chick in blue jeans. But there's no reason we can't have some fun with this and sell more blue jeans with a great jeans club with a white, black, Hispanic, Asian chicks in them. Why not? Also, I want to see more Sydney Sweeney, so this I hope they do this. Okay, this would be a great idea. Hey, American Eagle, you can have that one for free. Okay, I've gone over by 2 minutes. I want to thank you all for watching me on this Wednesday morning, now in the afternoon. And remember, I'm going to be doing this show regularly from now on, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 10 a.m. to noon. I'm going to sit and bloviate for 2 hours on current events. And so I'll see you all on Friday at 10 a.m. And God bless you. And God bless Sydney Sweeney and her great jeans.